I think we're live. It appears we're live. So I am thrilled because we get to do round two, because apparently round one may have only posted to me personally. And what you have to say, Heather, is way too important not to share with the public. So healing from a narcissistic relationship is what we're here to talk about with the extraordinary Heather Kent, who is an author and a therapist and a very wise woman who has agreed to come here for 50, I'd like to hold it 5, but for 15, 3 5s minutes to explore the profound issues that I think this country is facing, and that anyone who has had the experience of being gaslighted, told that her experience is not worthwhile, or who has felt a sense of having to walk around on eggshells, is in an opportunity right now to change course and to heal something. And so, Heather, welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank
Welcome,
you.
welcome back. We just had our warm-up round, and I'd like to just tell you quickly about part of why I'm really excited that you're coming back for round two, because I have had an experience recently of working with a woman who told me that she was recovering from the trauma of being in a relationship with a narcissistic ex-husband who she had had to go to court with, and who had the experience of a judge telling her essentially, I don't care. And then having compounded on that, the experience of having half of the country, she felt, telling her, well, you know what, you still don't count, and it's okay to lie, it's okay to be gaslighted, it's okay to have your experience annihilated. And she is in the recovery process now. And I think for those of us who have any kind of sense of relation or relating to that, maybe feel of what that might be like. And so, again, can you tell us what a narcissist is and how we know if we're in a narcissistic relationship?
So the word narcissist is so, I think, commonly used. It's almost become a bit of a buzzword as of late, especially given the so blatantly, obviously narcissistic actions of a former world leader, shall we say. And it has been a very difficult ride to navigate, I think, especially for women and quite frankly, men, anyone who has been in a psychologically abusive relationship, whether that be with an intimate partner, a coworker, a boss, or a parent, someone in their family. If you have been subjected to ongoing and consistent degradation, questioning your worth, questioning your sanity, trying to reconcile if what you believe to be true is true, when you're being constantly told and your opinion and experience is invalidated, that you didn't remember correctly, that never happened, I never said that, I only did that because you did this. Totally twisting the facts, making you question your sense of how you understood things. When you've been through that experience, it changes everything about your belief system, about who you are, about, whether you're allowed to take up space in the world, forget the world, in the room. And it's just become so, I think, triggering over the past 4 years, especially for those living in the United States, having their leader be invalidating of abuse and white supremacy and, inciting violence because they couldn't accept the loss. They could never be told that they were wrong. They could never be told that their information was not accurate. They could never be held accountable, and they could never be called into question. They were immune, quite literally, from any kind of wrongdoing, and then pointing the finger at everybody else and invalidating our experience as survivors. of abusive relationships. And I would go so far to say is that the entire country, the United States, is in recovery from a narcissistic relationship with their leader.
And what happens when you're in recovery or before you get into recovery? What are the ramifications or the consequences for somebody who's in that relationship? What do you see of these of those who come to you saying, I'm having this problem? Like, how do we know that
We
that's what's
have typically a complete disconnection from ourselves, from our bodies, from our, you know, inner truest self that has become lost and buried underneath the eggshells that you've been walking on for however many years, the constant fear, living in fear of vindictive behavior or retaliation or punishment for wrongdoing or misstepping or misunderstanding or, you know, getting something wrong. And so you come out of this experience feeling that you are wrong and that everything, every ounce of suffering or discomfort that other people experience around you is somehow your fault and somehow your responsibility to fix. And you have spent so much time trying to um, anticipate and mitigate possible tension or conflict, and you just give and give and give everything of yourself to the point where there's nothing left and you don't even know who you are anymore or what to do with yourself anymore, and your connection to your body is basically non-existent. A lot of dissociation, a lot of numbness, a lot of closed offness, a lot of feeling just totally desperate and isolated and alone.
Is it accurate to say that you've taken in the belief system that in fact you are crazy or you
Yes.
are
Yeah.
foolish, stupid, or you're making things up, and
So many people that yeah, so many people that I work with, I feel like I'm crazy. Am I crazy? Is this just me? Is this normal? Do you think that this is normal? And is this over the top? Is it too much? Am I too much? This is always the sort of line of questioning that I hear in the beginning. And they're, they're afraid to even tell their story because they're afraid that they won't be believed because they've been told for so long that they're wrong, that their experience is not valid, that they misremember, that that never happened, that they're overreacting, that they're too sensitive, that whatever fill in the blank. And whatever that version of not enough is becomes internalized, and that becomes a core belief that that what you have to say isn't valid. What you believe and feel and need, your basic human needs are not valid, let alone important.
And I know we spoke a little bit about this at our
Mhm.
previous talk.
Yeah.
Can you say something then about what is the intervention then? What's a practical step that one can take to start to validate or to start to know that you're not crazy or to determine if you are crazy? I don't
Mhm.
know.
Well, I
What,
think I think step one really is taking the step to speak to someone who is able to give you sort of professional guidance to explore those questions. Because asking a friend or a family member is all wonderful, and those people are great supports to have, and they are well meaning, but they don't necessarily have the understanding, background, education, or experience to be able to guide you through those questions in a way that they can make sense of them. And so I think reaching out to someone who can sort of explore that with you in an objective and supportive way is number one. And number two, mindfulness. And so, again, another big buzzword. What is mindfulness? And it is simply taking a breath and taking a step back before reacting to a feeling, before responding to someone or something that happened, and just noticing, oh, how do I feel right now? And just paying attention to that and deciding to respond thoughtfully after pausing and taking a breath versus reacting in the moment impulsively. And so just basic mindfulness skills is where I start always.
It's part of why I'm so excited talking with you, Heather, because I feel like you help solve such a specific problem, such a very real suffering that I think right now actually millions of us are suffering from. And because you and I meet so perfectly together in this alignment of what sounds like this kind of obvious answer, but which to me is a very rich exploration of connecting to yourself. I mean,
Mhm.
my work specifically is about connecting to the
Yeah.
body as a source of intelligence and healing rather than suffering. And that just being able to connect to feel it is the first step of
Yeah,
freedom. It,
absolutely. And being able to like identify yourself,
yes.
which you maybe forgot how to do.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Right. To identify yourself. At a time, particularly, I think, in when there's been a narcissistic relationship or any kind of abusive relationship or any
Mm.
experience of, I'm not supposed to count. I'm not supposed to feel what I feel. To actually then be able to say, I identify
Yeah,
I'm doing this work of, I'm actually present. I'm part of the equation.
exactly. Present and grounded and connected to this space and this existence and this experience right now. And like all of that just gets so lost in sort of the poison of the, for lack of a better word, propaganda that has been spewed at you through gaslighting and lies and manipulation and passive aggressive comments. Um, that that is when that is all you hear when you tune in, whether it
Mm,
be on the news or into your personal life, if that is the message you're receiving over and over and over again, this is what you internalize and start to believe. And so
yeah.
being able to like step out of that and feel yourself in a moment, that's profound and very empowering. Very first step.
Yeah. Wow. Yes. And that it's like that's deconstructing the
Mm.
narcissistic relationship. It sounds it's like taking back the power
Yeah.
that the narcissist was holding on so tightly to. As I think that you were saying earlier, like the narcissist is one who has to identify him or herself as
Mm-hmm.
a person, as the one that has all of the power, that has the right answers, and then to actually start to consider that you get also to have the answers, that you get to have your own experience, that you get to have
Mm-hmm.
just by connecting to yourself, is to now start to deconstruct, to undo that
Mm-hmm.
connection with the narcissist. I love that. And because I know I said it was only going to be 15 minutes, because you got some power to share, Heather. So okay, so if that's the answer, like, okay, I'm going to do this mindfulness thing, I'm going to do this connection thing, sounds good. Maybe I'm still in the relationship, maybe the person's still in my family, maybe I'm not
Mm-hmm.
sure. What obstacle am I going to find? Like, what, help me know, like, what's going to be hard about that?
Well, it is very hard to leave a situation if you haven't been able to do so, or if it's a family connection, or you share children with someone, because you're stuck in this cycle of abuse. And we've all maybe heard of the cycle of abuse, and we tend to go to, oh, physical violence, domestic violence. But no, cycle of abuse is very much emotional and psychological abuse as well. And I would argue that it is actually much more damaging. And so narcissistic abuse is really interesting because there's a very specific cycle called narcissistic cycle of abuse, where the cycle goes like this: idealize, dis, devalue, discard. And then they'll hoover you back in with the idealizing, then they'll devalue you, and then they'll discard you. And then they hoover you back in with the idealizing, devalue, discard. And around the cycle you go. If it's a family member, a parent, a sibling, you've also got this family systems situation going on where you have, over the course of your entire existence in the family, become, in the you've played a role, and your role in that family unit, in that system, breaking free from that role causes all kinds of havoc in the family system. And so it is very difficult to be able to remove yourself not only from the cycle, and you've got this whole Stockholm syndrome going on with your intimate partner as another example as well, where you know, you love and want to protect your abuser because your feelings for them were quite real. And so, we see that in, terrorism victims and torture victims where they develop some kind of attachment to their abusers because of the nature of what the cycle of abuse does to you psychologically. And so there's just a lot of complexities going on depending on what the relationship with the narcissist is, whether it's intimate partner or a family member or a person at work, etc. So there's some extra layers to disentangle yourself from, which can be very hard to do by yourself.
Well, that sort of segues into my next question with you is how do you interrupt that? How do you get in there? And maybe it's going to see a professional like you.
Yeah,
Um,
it's support. It's reaching out for support. So joining group, joining community, reaching out for, I always recommend reaching out for professional guidance from some kind of a therapist or healer who can like walk this road with you, because it is confusing and difficult and very isolating, because if you're with a narcissist, their goal has been to isolate so that they can control you. And so you might feel like you're alone in the cold by yourself.
yeah, and
Which,
I appreciate that because for me as a body empowerment coach, what you say about isolation to me is also what we do with ourselves. That
yes.
that either we keep ourselves isolated because we don't believe that we're worthy to go out in the world, or because we're too fat or we're too ugly or because we're too old or whatever it is. But then there's like this internal isolation against ourselves too. It's like I don't really value what I'm thinking or feeling because whatever history or experience I have. And so that
Mm-hmm.
to start to connect to oneself then makes it available maybe or more possible to connect to a friend who's then going to say, my God, this is what my experience is, and to be validated by that. And so then say, okay, maybe now I'm going to be able to speak to Heather, I'm going to speak to someone, or I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to actually do this process of getting out of what has been such a painful situation. And I'm really grateful to talk with you today, because I think for some of us who are healing from the narcissistic relationship of the country that the
Yeah.
country's been in, we've had the sweet experience, although for me, I know, of literally crying with relief when I saw
Yes.
Kamala Harris ascend the steps and when I realized the
Mm-hmm.
bad man is gone. I
Yeah.
mean, literally, it was this somatic, physical, oh my God, thank God, that I think that we have been holding for 4 years. I
You're
think
so right.
I
Yeah.
think that if you have an experience in any regard, whether or not it's something explicit and clear, like abuse in my case, or you've experienced violence, or you just know what it is to not be taken seriously and to have your pain invalidated. If
Mm-hmm.
it's about racism, it's about sexism, it's about whatever it is, I feel like we are in a national moment of healing and trying to understand how not to get back into it, because what is astonishing is that half the country still believes that that behavior is okay, which I think is re-triggering. I think that every time
Absolutely.
in the news that says there are people that rallying for someone who I perceive as being in that narcissistic cycle with me, that is traumatizing still. And so I can reassure myself about what the administration is, but I think there's still triggers. And
And there's going to be, and because a narcissist can never accept failure or defeat or loss, that they need to validate their existence again by these external measures, and office of the former president to continue his administration's work. Well, like, what does that even mean? And so you do have these triggering situations where this man needs the external validation for his own, like, his ego, his inner self will crumble if he does nothing. He can't do nothing because his existence will then become completely invalidated because he has no validation for himself. And so this is why he's got these people that he's rallying around and like summoning, because if he doesn't do that, he will crumble. He cannot exist without it. And so, what does that mean for the rest of us who are healing from the trauma of the past 4 years from this abusive relationship.
And I appreciate that. And I see, by the way, now I know I've got on my chat, like, hello, Elizabeth and Celia and Marie and Sung. And I'm
Oh,
so
good.
glad
It's working. Hooray.
we weren't working before. And so just hi, it's just good to have you here. And to, to say that, we can continue the chat here now that we've got us up on Facebook. And now, of course, I can't remember specifically what I was going to say, but as we're in this national moment of healing, I do want to say that this really is not about politics. This post,
Not at all.
live
Not at all.
live Facebook feed is not about politics. It's about something that's much more personal for those of us who have felt in any way that these past 4 years has been an experience of, and I almost don't want to use the word narcissist because it's a buzzword. I kind of want to fill in having had an experience of feeling that your experience has been annihilated or that disregarded, and that it's felt unsafe. To be able to have this conversation with you, Heather, is really terrific. And I don't know that we got nearly as deep into your work as we could. Maybe I'll be able to put together that past post that we did that didn't officially come on, but about some of these jewels of what you teach about how to get through this. And so how do we get in touch with you if we want to do more healing?
If you would like to talk to me, I would be happy to offer a conversation and a consultation with you. And so you just have to book a call with me, and it's very easy to do that. You can just head on over to my website. It's heatherjkent.com, and you can just put that. We can put it in the comments below, and or we can put it in the chat. And you just click on book a call, and I would be happy to spend an hour with you. Of course, free of charge, to see what's happening for you, explore your experience, and see what support we might be able to offer to you as you go on, or you're, walking down or continuing on this journey of healing that frankly we're all kind of walking through together. And so, having been a survivor myself, it was equally as relieving. It's so interesting because I'm not American, and I'm, the Canadian experience watching that day, the inauguration, and I was just on my knees in this relief and emotional relief, and I just had tears streaming down my face, and I didn't know how much my body was holding for the past 4 years, not even as an American. And so I can't imagine the heaviness and the trauma that people are sifting through and trying to make sense of, especially in these past weeks, over the past month. And so it can be very triggering if you've experienced any form of abuse to have been witnessing any of this or subjected to the words of another abusive human being on the news. And so I'm happy to hold that space for you. So please do not hesitate. Please reach out, book a call with me, heatherjkent.com.
Thank you so much, Heather. And thank you. I'm so good, Marie. You got Marie, you got a little endorsement. Marie is saying that therapy with Heather really works. So thanks for that shout out, Marie.
You are so fantastic. It's so sweet.
And to all of you who joined, it's really nice to know that we're together in the live. And for those of us who are going to be watching on the recording, it's good to be with you on the recording. Heather and I were enjoying earlier knowing that even though we're in Canada and Hawaii and, zones and climates apart, that we are still together, whether or not we're live or recorded. The love is always just right here in the moment. And so thank you, Heather. Thank you. It's been really great talking with you. There's just so much more to discuss. Maybe we'll do it again.
Let's get back together and let's carry on the conversation another day. I would love that.
So beautiful. So for now, love you.
Love you too. Have a great night or afternoon. Aloha.
Cool. All right. So that stopped our live.
Sweet.
Okay, good.